Okay, so this is kind of, well, it's not kind of, this is just unscripted, but I really want to think about this. Okay, so in one day, just today, uh, this kind of stuff, this kind of information appears. A former Prime Minister of Canada put out a video, or was taped or whatever, something like this, basically advocating for free trade, on the grounds that history has shown that free trade is a really good thing. At the same time, same day, I come across an article that has to do with the textile industry in Canada. It's an older article that I was researching textile manufacturers here because I'm really interested in that. And apparently, textile manufacturers have gone out of business like crazy as a direct result of free trade. Wow, this is confusing. Thought it was such a good thing. There's unions here that are advocating for a raise, and there's a city, council that has basically said, we haven't got any money. As a matter of fact, we're bankrupt. So what's going to happen if you get your raise? Which they did. Then a newspaper article, actually just lighting the fire with some of these newspapers that end up, being littered all over the front of your house. People just throw at you thinking you really want this stuff. Anyway, newspaper article saying that some physicians are really, really upset because some tax changes are going to take place that could really affect them, and they say this is really going to cause patients to suffer. So a little bit of research on that, and different places that said, gee, they might end up paying, as much as $30,000 in some cases in taxes that they're not paying now. And then another piece of information that there's hundreds of thousands of people that don't even earn $30,000, let alone have $30,000 left over in taxes that they could not pay. Okay, this is the kind of, confusing world that we live in. I'm going to tell another story. Another one comes across. It's a story from the Holocaust, as there are things being published because of Holocaust remembrance. A story of a man who essentially saw the need in himself to take care of a large number of children that were essentially orphaned in these ghettos and so on, and had nobody, and he saw it as his role to provide comfort to them. And apparently he had several chances to escape. I mean, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but it probably is. He had chances to escape, and he chose to stay with these children because they needed comfort. And apparently this story continued all the way to the gas chambers, in which he decided to walk them to their own death, but to be there for them until the very end, to comfort them. Okay, so look, here's an example from the Holocaust of someone with incredible moral courage. And we have to say that this is practically the definition of what we would consider a really, truly good person. Someone who is willing to sacrifice themselves for the sake of other people. So if we could just kind of agree that that was directionally a valid idea, that real acts of heroism are acts of sacrifice for the sake of a greater good, then let's look at the other side of the spectrum, which is that what was so evil about the Nazis and what happened there was a group of people that were willing to control and even kill people for the sake of their own betterment. And furthermore, there were a lot of people that were willing to simply turn a blind eye to what was happening. Okay, these are the definitions of evil. Blind eye being, the willingness to remain ignorant, and the really evil part, the willingness to gain for oneself at the detriment of others. Now, I would extend that in principle to say it's not just about others, it's about all that is there. That means whether it's a larger group of people or the environment or the whole of the earth. The same thing applies to goodness, in that goodness, when we think of what we need to sacrifice for the sake of a common good, we realize that, wow, all good is common. And it isn't just common to white people in North America. It's common to all people in North America. And it isn't just common to people in North America, it's common to all people. And it isn't just common to all people, it's common to all living beings. And it isn't just common to all living beings, it's common to the entire environment that supports them. So what I would like to just say is that this is just another way of articulating what I, will seem to always just keep coming back to try to understand the world in terms of having some reference points, a reference point for good and a reference point for evil. Now those words, we live in a culture which really loves black and white, and it says, well, it's either one or the other. Look, it's not. It's a matter of the blend that these have. It's clearly, in order to survive, that we need to actually eat. And this is not necessarily great for the things that we eat. However, it is about a balance, and it's about having a respect at both levels of this spectrum. So getting back to our, first stories, I'm looking at, how would I look at this whole free trade issue? Not knowing it, not looking at it from the point of information. I'm no expert on it. I have no idea. But kind of like in principle, who is it that's speaking, that is saying, oh, this is such a good thing? And what do they mean by good? Because it clearly wasn't good for the textile manufacturing industry. And in my lifetime, I've seen tons of manufacturing in my little town that have evaporated. And so, but yet we're told that this is really a great thing. Well, it's funny, we're told that, and then at the same time, if you look at the time period where free trade, became the big thing, NAFTA and all this, the income inequality is just, the income divide is just becoming greater and greater, to the point now where it can't be anything but called obscene. But you know what? I wonder, maybe GDP is up. Like, what measurements are you using to call something, good, when we say, oh, it's, history proves that this is a good thing? Okay, I'm not saying that I, know everything about free trade or this or that. I'm just saying that it's suspect when somebody who clearly has a great deal is advocating for the goodness of a thing. And when there's clearly evidence to suggest that people that don't have a great deal, that are doing really honest work, aren't doing so well by it. Okay, the unions, it's a similar kind of thing. So, look, everyone feels they deserve a raise. But, if the city can't afford this raise, then, what's going to happen? Okay, so the raise goes through, but the city can't afford it. So the city has to do something. So what's it going to do? It's either going to take from other people that are more vulnerable, or maybe it'll have to lay off some of those union members. So are you, as a union member, happy to have a little bit more for yourself and see one of your brothers not have anything? Like, is that the kind of mentality that we have in the world now? We have more than we need. We all have more than we need. Everybody who's watching this video has more than they need. Third one, the physicians are, really upset about this tax change. Oh, sorry about that. The physicians are really upset about this. I'm going to have to wait for that to go. Hello? No. Anyway, my other phone's going to ring in a second. So similarly, the physicians are really upset about this tax change. And, look, when I first read that as a small business person, I was up in arms, thinking, why are you once again attacking the most vulnerable? But the interesting thing about that one was that the people that came out really, really vehemently against this tax change, I realized, are all so-called small business people that have a huge amount of money. They're not me, and they're not the guys that are doing work on my house. They're not the guys that are fixing my car. They're not the guys that came and installed my water heater. I haven't heard from any of those guys. I've heard from all these people that are wearing suits and very well respected in society, saying somehow or other that these taxes are unfair. Well, I did my own research, and after, initially having this kind of reaction, I decided, you know what? The direction of this tax change is definitely for the common good. That's the intent, I would say. Whether it's perfect or not, I'm not going to argue, but its intent is good. And so I'm in favor of that tax change, even though it will negatively affect me. So I guess my point is that these stories, what we complain about in the West, when you think about the story of this man willing to sacrifice his own life for the sake of comforting some people that needed some comfort. This is This is a great moral reference point for all of us. And I think that I have to say, to be honest, I'm very sorry to say this, but I have to say that in general, from what I see in terms of people's willingness to not recognize that they already have more than their share and fighting for more and all this kind of thing, that I think there are very few people that are prepared to have that kind of moral integrity. And I think that, I think that's really sad. I think that good and evil need to be discussed, and that it is a far more important discussion than capitalism versus socialism versus communism versus this or that. A good person will do good regardless of the system. And, evil people will use any system to perpetuate evil. And I think we have to get back to a basic discussion of what it means to be a good person, and where we think where we want to be with respect to that spectrum, where we want to live.